Well, good morning, everyone. We are starting what I believe is our fifth class in the life class. And I've had lots of emails from folks who are traveling today. This is a major travel weekend, and also a lot who have other obligations, but they are listening to our podcast. Good morning to you all. Blessings of those who can't be there this morning. Many of you have have asked me about our return from Iceland, which happened night before last. And what I can say is that if you haven't been, do go to experience this land of extremes and things that you have probably never seen before. I have a little exercise that I want to do at the beginning of class. Iceland is also a land of metaphors. The center of it is absolutely uninhabitable because it's so unstable. It's filled with volcanoes, and our guide was very quick to say at any point, oh, this volcano went off 2 years ago. This volcano is set to go off here, or just to make sure we were listening and awake on the bus. Oh, you just never know when this could go off. And so, you could see that people were kind of getting in a state of hypervigilance. And one woman whispered to me, I'm supposed to be on vacation trying to calm down. And I find myself being very unsettled. And so it's a harsh, harsh land. People have to work very, very hard, not only to survive economically, but their history within generations of their family. They may have been totally uprooted due to volcanic activity, due to fishermen being lost at sea, due to being lost in the harsh wilderness. And she had many, many stories about this. So, we were able to see the northern lights several different times. And by the end of the trip, a member of our party said, I think I'm ready for the gentle southern lights of home. And that was echoed. But I thought about this class so much and thought about each of you and what works of beauty that your lives are. And what a metaphor for the harshness of life and the difficulties that each of us have endured. Um, the reason it was a metaphor was because there was one day near the end of the trip where we finally reached the absolute northernmost tip of Iceland, and we looked straight across the sea to the Arctic Circle. And it was a beach where the volcanoes and the big, sharp, jagged lava rocks had been through so much with the winds and the storms and everything that happened to the land formations that they were worn down into a black, smooth beach of pebble rocks, like what you see in each hand before you. Beautiful and smooth. Now, if I had taken these, I would have been retained by the Icelandic police and probably not come back with our group. But our guide, who is an Icelandic citizen for many generations, she was able to scoop up just enough to give our group each one as a memento. There's some kind of a law, like there is with everything, that if you're a citizen, you can get one for each of your tour groups. And what the point I want to make is that each one of us have had our hard edges smoothed away over time, and probably will have some smoothed away in this class as we began to feel safe enough to drop some of these things that we're going to learn about as we finally feel safe. Some of these hard edges and mask and defenses we've had to accrue just so that we could protect ourselves in life. I advised you 2 weeks ago to be kind and gentle to yourself as you listen to this material, because you have had to put on these 60 characteristics in order to survive this life, just like those jagged edges of the volcanoes. And we've been through fire, we've been through ice. So I'm going to start one at the front of the class and one at the back of the class. Hold it during the class today as long as you want to, and think about the thousands of miles where this little rock has come, and know that you're perfect and shining soul down deep in the middle of you, and she's right there waiting for you. Luda, I'm going to ask you, start this right here, and then that at the back row. Sometimes just holding something in the palm of your hand, knowing that it's just so real, and that you may have come so many, many miles, and that you have many, many to go. But you know, those waves of the ocean that come in life, sometimes so fast at us and beat us down, and come so close together we think they'll never stop. They do. You reach a calm. It doesn't go on forever. Suffering's not just for the sake of suffering. Our character is formed. Those things are our teachers. Tell yourself you're safe now. So, with that, I want to continue on with just an overview of the 60 characteristics. We did the first 33, and I have emailed you again that list of handouts so you have them. But let me give you just a little description of them. These are things that come up in life, even in healthy homes, but what we have noticed in our research is that in homes where there is complex post-traumatic stress syndrome, these are very prevalent and shape our very being as we grow up in these types of households. Number 34, and as a recovering Southern Baptist who was there at the church all of the time with parents in very visible leadership positions, I can really relate to this one myself. Image is more important, and I would add much more important, than being real. So how people see us is more important than who we really are. And we believe that our only value is in having others validate our looks, validate our abilities. So a lot of my memories from early childhood are posing for print or magazine covers, or our family getting together and being dressed, and the pictures, and making sure that things look very, very perfect on the outside, or degrees or accomplishments, things like that, and just almost as though I had a little inner dial where I could turn off immediately how I felt or who I was, because I had to project a certain image. And I'm sure that some of you can maybe relate to that. You've been in a different situation, or maybe for a different reason, but we have to get very good at that. Number 35, control issues. In a dysfunctional family, our every action was either controlled and or abused by an authority figure. So this is not always the case, not every action, but generally there's a presence of a controlling figure or some sort of abuse of authority in our life. Not necessarily our parents, but may have been a figure of power. Often I'll be in a group and someone will say, I haven't been to a church in a very long time, and I don't intend to be, because I experienced an abuse of power by a church authority. So our sole purpose was to help them get their needs met with little, their sole purpose was to help them get their needs met with little or no regard about how it made us feel. So there was a driving agenda on the part of the caretaker or the leader to look good, get the job done, but there was never any getting down on our level. How do you feel? How can I help you feel safe? Now, if there was, wonderful. Thank goodness. That would have been positive, unconditional love. And very often you can think about maybe somebody outside the family that maybe did do that for you. And those times are usually very exquisitely sharp memories in our memory bank. And I can definitely remember people, teachers mostly, or Sunday school teacher, or someone way outside the family that maybe interacted with me. Number 36, and this is something that you've probably heard about or read about, called learned helplessness. In the last 10 or 15 years, there's been a lot written about it. Another way that people have described this is victim mentality. Another way that it's been described is getting stuck in self-pity. And many of us get stuck there. It's just kind of part of the human condition. If we admit it at all, and I think people have gotten a lot better at saying, "Oh, I got stuck there for a while," or I'm out of that pit now. But it's just that feeling of powerlessness where we can't move on from our past, and then we can't move forward to our future. Some of this is just a legitimate place. We just get stuck, particularly with grief. It's just a place. And sometimes it's just an okay place where we need to just cocoon for transformation. We simply do not have energy. It's simply part of a normal depression that's just part of the journey, as distinguished from a darker clinical depression. But some people, when they stay there too long, you may have noticed, can get in a place where they feel like just the world owes them because of what they have been through. And we see this get out of hand with certain individuals where it's not a healthy place. Number 37, stopped growing emotionally. You have seen people where there's a stunting in their emotional development or growth. What was that TV show that was out a few years ago, Arrested Development? And it was kind of a humorous take that's on that, but actually it's a very serious thing. So if we experience enough trauma as a child, we can stop growing emotionally at that age. And if the person develops unhealthy ways of coping, in order to survive, let's say that we have someone that, begins to use drugs and drink and to manipulate at, say, the age of 12. I can think of many, many, many people, they will probably have, they may be 10, emotionally, so they're not able to adult in relationships when they get older, haven't really even achieved an adolescent way of relating to the world. Number 38, this is some of these where it's either one way or the other way. I learned when I started my own therapy in my late 20s with adult children of alcoholics, that adult children of alcoholics were either really responsible or super irresponsible. And this is the same characteristic. You don't have to be a child of an alcoholic to be this way. This means we're going to do everything perfectly so others can see how awesome we are, or we already think we just can't do anything right, so at least we'll be noticed for making bad look good. I'm going to be really, really bad. And so many of us may have one child that is the baddest of the bad, and then have, the poster child for achievement over here on the other extreme. Interesting that out of 60 characteristics, addiction's only one. This is not about substances. I think probably more people will be coming to hear about this when they realize this is only one out of 60. And out of this one, there's two types of addiction. There's chemical, okay, and there's process. So any kind of behavior that serves as an escape from our pain, or that we believe is the answer to our problem, qualifies. Now, it's really interesting here. Dr. Lemke, who is all over YouTube and has books, who is I believe she's at Stanford, who is a top professor and lecturer. I believe she wrote The Dopamine Nation. I'll have to correct myself, but I think that's right. She's just absolutely wonderful. She tells her story publicly that she had absolutely no problem with substances or alcohol or anything like that. She was a delightful person to hear her talk. But she just all of a sudden developed an addiction to romance novels after, starting out with just, you pick up a Nora, whatever her name is, and this and that, you're in the airport or whatever, and she couldn't stop it. And so all of a sudden, this was her professional field, and she got to experience what it was really like to descend into that world. And of course, now it makes her work and her story and her mission, just so viable. And she's able to relate to so many people because now she has this piece. It's kind of like I felt where I did all this work with codependency and alcoholism and all of that, and then all of a sudden everything crashed through, and here I am checked into the rehab center that I had sent people to for 10 years, and it was just like, oh my gosh, okay, I get to do this too. It doesn't matter how much you know. Okay, God, you better be using this in my life. So, you just never know. 40 is memory gaps. How many times have I asked someone, and what about your early growing up years? What do you recall about early growing up? What do you recall about childhood? Not an effort to dig into their business, but I'm just interested. It doesn't have anything to do with work, just asking somebody. I don't remember anything about my childhood. Well, I've asked people about that, maybe before I was 10 or 12, but I don't know, I'm not very interested in that. You get a variety of responses. Okay, so it's not just always denial, it can be a real gap there. Our brain has the ability to block memories that it thinks that we can't handle. So there actually can be big spaces of time. It may not be those early years, but it might be between like 8 and 10. It can just be vacuums. And that's a very normal thing with this. 41, we create what we fear. What I mean by this is the longing for validation. We may become overly needy at times, or we may observe this in other people. They stop validating us and leave. I was talking about a series that I started to watch, because I don't get much time to watch television here, but I started watching one that I'd wanted to watch several years ago but never had, called Sorry for Your Loss, with Elizabeth Olsen. Remember the Olsen twins? And it was highly acclaimed, and I watched it coming back during the 5 hours, just the first few episodes on season, and it's about grief. And because I do grief share, I thought if this is worthwhile, I might want to recommend it and see. Well, I turned it on, and it was about an actual situation in which a woman is widowed early, but she goes to grief share. And it's definitely, I would recommend it. But she gets to about 4 months after the actual loss, and she kind of kicks into gear and starts feeling the anger about her loss, and all of a sudden she decides that she's going to have a birthday party, and just kind of becomes this different person, for a little while anyway. And she just invites 675 friends on Facebook to her mother's house. Just this out of character thing. You see people go through it in grief. And this one girl from high school comes, and the girl evidently has scrapbooks of every picture that she's ever had with this young widow since high school, and has them cataloged, and comes right up to her at her birthday party and said, "I have you right here on the cover. I thought about you every day. I have made this scrapbook, for you," and starts talking about why she couldn't come to the funeral. This is at the birthday party. And you just feel the neediness just dripping off. And it's got a lot of humorous moments, but just that I thought about this one, longing for validation. And of course, she creates a situation in which the recently widowed woman is just like, "No, why are you doing this at my birthday party?" But it's just the perfect scenario about how they create situations where need to be pushed away. Number 42, the fear of saying no. We don't want to take the risk that someone will be mad at us or they won't like us anymore. So we just agree to whatever it is that they ask. Deep fear of saying no. So a lot of that is that the brain registers the original fury, impatience, dismissiveness of the original wounding. And there's an inner assumption that if we ask for what we need, or we think we have a good idea, that we'll be met with that same thing back. And it's so wonderful when people start healing and taking little baby steps. Like I might say, "Okay, that is really a legitimate request." And they'll go, "Is it? Is it okay to ask for?" And I'll go, "Yes, it's really okay to ask for. Now, why don't you write this on a note card and ask this question too?" And they'll come back and go, "Oh my gosh." They said, "Well, of course." And it's just a huge thing. They weren't yelled at. The person was a safe, healthy person that they asked. And then there's a lot of grief when they find out, "Oh my gosh, my whatever person I grew up with or whatever was not a safe person." They'll say, "You mean they weren't a safe, healthy person?" I said, "Well, healthy people don't glare and scream or beat or or ignore." And it just opens up a whole different thing about their life going forward, meaning that they can ask for what they need and it's okay now. And we've really been kind of acting out of our child brain all this time, but that we're a grown-up person and those days are past. So we're getting into ways of relating from here on with number 43. This is a huge one. Fear of abandonment or rejection. And this can permeate the lives of people until they cross over to the next life and they never are aware of it. Abandonment is the ultimate rejection. If we have been abandoned, we assume there must be something wrong and we are unwanted. Just automatically assume it's our fault. And we're just sure that if somebody gets really, really close to us, that that they will abandon us as well. So generally, we'll pull back before the other person can leave us in some way. In some way. We have to make sure that the other person is not going to leave in whatever way that is going to be. And we need lots of reassurance. No matter how many times we need reassurance, we need to learn to ask for that. It's okay. It's okay. Only positive, consistent expressions of safe reinforcement over time will begin to heal that wound. And number 44, the wearing of mask. I think I've told you about my first interview with my doctor when I was in my 9 weeks of treatment for PTSD. And he slid his sunglasses down and he looked at me over his desk and he said, "I'm ready to meet with you when you're ready to take off your game face." And I was highly irritated, highly insulted, highly wounded already. But it saved us a lot of time. We pretend to look and act how we think others want us to. We just got it all together. The longer we wear masks, the more disconnected from ourselves we become. Kind of like those pebbles you're holding. Those pebbles, the essence of ourselves, who we really are. Or many, many, many layers to insulate ourselves from the harshness, cruelty, lies, mistrained consciences, all the things we'll be learning about. Number 45, isolate. Physically. We often move to reinvent ourselves. Maybe emotionally we shut down. We try to become invisible. How many stories that I've heard of the ways that people become invisible. When we were on our tour in Iceland, there were so many legends, and 75% of Icelanders still believe this about the hidden people. And there are all these legends about the hidden people who are defined as beautiful, strong people who really have supernatural abilities. And they hide back within the mountains. And they're not visible to the human eye. And they're good people. They're benevolent people. They do no harm. But the Icelanders, the older ones and the generations before, claim to have been saved by them or good deeds done by them. But the hidden people know that it's not safe to come out. And so they stay hidden within the mountains. We can also isolate by being a relationship junkie. And by that, it means that we propel ourselves so far out there and busy ourselves, monkeying around in everybody else's life and distracting ourselves, that we never have to face ourselves, never have to deal with us. Number 46, manipulate. This can be really tricky because sometimes the most manipulative people you would not think at first glance. You think of manipulative as being bossy or that it be visible that other strings are pulled, but this can be so subtle. We can learn to manipulate others to get our needs met and read our caregivers' emotions to see if it is safe to ask for something. Asking for what we need feels risky because the answer might be no. I remember my father coming to me in my teenage years, and my mother always remained an absolute mystery to him. And she was trained that you should never let anybody know what's going on with you from an early age. And he would come and say, how do you know kind of what she's thinking? How would you know if it's the right time to ask her something? You know, whether she would rage or explode or whatever. He's like, how do you get that? And I said, well, Daddy, I'm a girl. And I said, and I watch and I study. And he goes, well, can you show me how to do that? And I said, I don't think I can. It's just an inside job. But I can let you know if it's a safe day maybe or something. So you can imagine the tiptoeing and the explosion. It's kind of like the Icelandic volcanoes or the waterfalls or whatever it was. It was an eggshell environment. 47, afraid to be a burden. Well, the work revolves around the authority figure. So it's kind of the same thing. You ask for something and it's met with great annoyance. So if it's met always with great, like the, what is a child going to conclude? We're going to conclude that we're a burden. We're not important and that we're a burden. We're in the way. Okay? 48, trust issues. Parents are supposed to keep us safe, to keep promises, and to love us unconditionally. All right, that's just in the wiring of a child. That's just something that doesn't change. That just comes with the biology of a child. When these needs aren't met, we can't trust them. So if we can't trust our caregivers, then we're not going to trust anybody. I remember very, very clearly going back in the corner, like just drawing like a little filter and going, I can't trust anybody. I will make myself so good at seeing what's going on, I won't have to trust anybody. I mean, I can tell you the moment, crystal clear. I can't trust anybody. But that kind of goes into what we're going to be talking about as the very, very first characteristic that we'll come back to in a little bit, called perfectionism. I'll get it covered. I'll get it covered first, so I won't have to trust anybody. I don't know if that registers with anybody, but that was my story. 49. Oh, another big one we're going to spend a lot of time on, and one that a lot of people don't really understand, and I think I'd get so much relief or help other people so much if they understood it, and this is shame. S-H-A-M-E, shame. We continually compare ourselves to others and don't feel valuable, lovable, or good enough. Good enough. Oh my goodness. We want people to like us, but we believe if they get close enough to know the real us, the real me, they would reject us. If you knew the real me, you wouldn't want me. You wouldn't love me. This would be over. 50. Authority issues. Someone in a position of authority has abused their power over us. This can lead to oppositional defiant disorder and us rebelling against and challenging authority. Okay. There's something in me that does not want to be told what to do. I remember being the only girl in like second or third grade who would not be a Girl Scout. And I remember very clearly saying, I will not be told what to wear. And some other things like that. Even though, most girls would, won't you feel left out? No, it was more important to me to be set apart, because of things. And now this material has helped me understand so much that I hadn't understood previously about those choices, because I love to join and I love to be in group, but there were some moments where I could control as a young child. I'm just giving you examples, because there was so much authority. I would pick out the times that I actually could make a choice without getting punished, or I could tolerate the punishment more than being told, what to do. So we rebel or challenge authority, just to be that little black stone in there, just to show our essence that I am a person that does not need to look or talk like everybody else and learn exactly what everybody else is having to learn, or spend my afternoon the way I would like to spend my afternoon. So you can think of other things in your mind in which the power of choice was within you and you struggled with making decisions, or where you almost became what you were told to be or told to do. 51 boundary issues. Most of us were never taught to set a healthy boundary, or that we are entitled to have boundaries. We're entitled to have boundaries. I remember reading Dr. Henry Cloud's book on boundaries. If you haven't read it, it's a really good one. And he goes through the scriptures, and particularly the Genesis, and talks about how God created the concept of boundaries. Where would we be without distinct boundaries between the land and the sea? Between fences, between neighbors, the laws that we have to have in place to allow us to have form, to have function, to prevent absolute chaos. And so if we have sort of a twisted definition or misguided conscience that perhaps we have gone to a church that does not understand this properly, all we're taught to do is to bleed over and outside ourselves in complete self-sacrifice to our own detriment. This is something that needs a lot of healing. It doesn't matter how old one is, but we can get straightened out on that, and come to healing very, very fast with a recognition of what was really meant by that. We also, if we don't get a strong sense of that within ourselves, we can be very easily manipulated to change our boundaries through life and not have the ability to choose or to say no. Number 52, the fear of losing what gives us value. If we gain our value from the wrong source, like other people's opinions of us, status, money, job, something that is fleeting, that could be gone tomorrow, we're always going to be fearful of losing it. So if we learn how to accept our internal self instead of our externals, we can learn to be at home with ourselves. A little pebble in your hand, right there. Think of the thousands and thousands and thousands of years that little pebble has been there waiting. Our eternal, imperishable self. Okay? 53, unhealthy bonding. When this happens, when we have what's called an unhealthy bonding, or as one of my trainers, Dr. Arno, for years, he would explain to me something called an unhealthy soul tie. And I won't go into that right now, but that helped me so much to understand this. When we bond, we tune out and ignore our needs. We remain insecure. We become disorganized, angry, aggressive, develop slowly, and we don't know what to expect from day to day. So we may bond, but if there is a very disorganized, unhealthy attachment, our lives really begin to disintegrate and we lose touch with who we really are. Number 54, in relationships, we're either the hero or we play a very needy role. So again, we're not in balance. The hero gets praise and adoration, and the needy get attention and care from the hero. So if you look at a couple or even a friendship, you can look at these dynamics. Kind of becomes a parent-child or object of adoration, the adorer, and you kind of look at that. You can probably think of a lot of examples on people that you know. The problem is that both parties may be trying to solve their shame, and the solution requires one person to be in a great place of need all the time. Number 55, a distorted view of love. This can come from the relationships we experience in our home growing up. A lot of people, when they look back, they don't ever remember being hugged or cuddled or really loved in a healthy way. So they're going to have a lot of trouble forming an emotional relationship with another person. There's just no background for it. They're just, they don't have memories of that. It's not in their wiring. We find this a lot when there's been mental illness in the family. Certainly, when I talk to people about their moms being very cold and unattached, what their grandmother was like, very often I'll find out that the grandmother might have been schizophrenic or might have been severely alcoholic, or maybe had lost, the sibling before, in a stillborn birth or a miscarriage. So family history is very important. When people say, oh, the past is the past, I see absolutely nothing that can be gained from looking at it. You can gain a lot. You can gain a lot from looking at it. Many insecurities is number 56. We tend to have more insecurity and worries about who we are than maybe the average person does if we've been through complex post-traumatic stress syndrome. We might focus on our physical features, our personality, our ideals, maybe just more important to focus on and obsess about than what's really going on right now and being in tune with that. 57, deep, deep longing for validation. We all have a deep need to know we're good people and worth something. We may not have received positive validation while growing up. And if we didn't, we believed the lies that we were told. And we're going to be uncovering a lot of these things that weren't true and finding out what really is true. 58, unhealthy approach to gaining a sense of value. We gain our value by comparing ourselves to others and judge by external criteria. This could be beauty, your physical appearance, your intellect, your personality, nice car, shoes, money. So there's all these, nothing that has to do with who the person is on the inside, just not being able to see past that shiny exterior. So how many people have you talked to that maybe started a relationship or got married, and then in about 6 months to 18 months, when they got past the exterior, they began to see the real person behind that, but they just would have never picked that up before. 59, jealousy issues. We don't want our people to spend time with anybody but us, and we're angry when they interact with others. Interesting. It's kind of like often I'll have a parent to tell me that their teenager will only have like 1 or 2 friends, and they get absolutely into a meltdown if that friend will spend the night with someone else, or not have their attention upon their son or daughter, and begin to show really early signs of this. And we come to the end of our little overview on number 60, and this is a big one. We don't know what healthy loyalty is. Ouch, 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 ouch. We're taught to be loyal to the family, And this could be the church or the group or whatever, no matter what the cost. So messages like the family is your only safe place. We keep it within the family. The family's the only one with the answers. We can't let anybody know. It takes a multitude of little descriptions like that. Your message may have come through a different way, but just almost insane loyalty, almost like some of the makings like of a cult sometimes will come through here. Those people don't know, only we know. And you may not have had a family like that, but some people will be attracted to a church or a group that will give them the validation that they never got actually inside the family. So that is your overview, and we're going to be recording this and sending this out to you. Our first in-depth will be on perfectionism, and as we look at that, we are going to take a deep dive into perfectionism, and I'm going to end here so that we can start it this next week. Yeah.